They call me the Dimensional Bounty Hunter, which is stupid because that's way too long and not as glamorous as it sounds. I hunt creatures that defy the laws of physics, creatures that exist in realms where time doesn't flow and space doesn't conform. I do it for one reason: the payout. If the bounty's high enough, I'll chase those nightmares to the ends of the multiverse. But trust me, there's a reason the price is so steep. You can't walk through hell without getting burned. I was sitting in a dive bar on the outskirts of a forgotten city when I got the call. The place was a shithole, but it was a familiar one. The kind of place where nobody asked questions and nobody cared what you did as long as you paid your tab. The bartender knew me by sight, but never by name, and that was just the way I liked it. I'd just taken down a high-level target, a spectral wraith that had been terrorizing a pocket dimension filled with lost souls. The payout had been good, but the job had left me drained, both physically and mentally. I was looking forward to a few days of R&R, maybe even getting a full night's sleep for once. But the universe had other plans. My communicator buzzed in my pocket, the screen flashing with the name of my handler, an ancient being known only as the Broker. I cursed under my breath, knowing that this could only mean one thing: another job. And not just any job, something big, something that no one else could handle. Fuck, I muttered, downing the rest of my drink in one gulp before answering the call. Talk to me, I said, trying to keep the irritation out of my voice.
There's a new target. High profile, high risk, high reward.
I sighed, rubbing a hand over my tired face. I just got back, Broker. Can't this wait?
No, this one's urgent. If we don't act now, the entire dimension could be lost.
I leaned back in my chair, staring up at the cracked ceiling of the bar. I'd been doing this job long enough to know that when the Broker said something was urgent, he meant it. And if an entire dimension was at stake, that meant the creature was big, bigger than anything I'd ever faced before. All right, I said, resigned. Give me the details.
The target is a Rendwraith, a creature that feeds on the fabric of reality itself. It's breached a high-value dimension, one that's been isolated from the rest of the multiverse for centuries. The bounty is substantial, but the risks are extreme.
I felt a chill run down my spine. I'd heard of Rendwraiths before, but I'd never encountered one. They were rare, ancient creatures, born from the collapse of dying universes. They didn't just kill, they erased. Whole dimensions could disappear if they were allowed to feed unchecked. How much? I asked, my voice low.
More than you've ever made in a single job, but only if you survive.
I took a deep breath, weighing my options. The smart thing to do would be to pass on the job, let someone else take the risk. But then again, there weren't many people in the business who could handle something like this. And the money, well, let's just say I had a few debts that needed clearing. Send me the coordinates, I said finally. I'll take it. The Broker didn't waste any time. Within seconds, the coordinates flashed on my communicator, along with a brief dossier on the Rendwraith. I glanced over it, noting the usual details: strengths, weaknesses, possible traps. But one thing stood out. The dimension it had breached was a closed system, sealed off from the rest of the multiverse by an ancient order of sorcerers. If the Rendwraith managed to escape, it could destabilize the entire network of realities connected to it. Great, I muttered, pocketing the communicator. No pressure. I paid my tab and left the bar, stepping out into the night. The air was thick with the scent of rain and gasoline, the neon lights of the city reflecting off the wet pavement. I pulled up the coordinates on my device, triggering the dimensional shift that would take me to the target's location. The world around me shimmered, the colors bleeding together as reality warped and twisted. I felt the familiar pull in my gut as I was dragged through the dimensional rift, my body stretching and compressing in ways that shouldn't have been possible. But I'd done this enough times that the sensation was more annoying than painful. When the world snapped back into focus, I found myself standing in the middle of a ruined cityscape. The sky was a sickly shade of green, streaked with dark clouds that crackled with energy. The buildings around me were crumbling, their foundations shattered by some unseen force. The air was heavy with the stench of decay and ozone. "Welcome to hell," I muttered, drawing my weapon, a customized energy rifle designed to disrupt the dimensional fabric. It wasn't much, but it was the best tool I had for hunting something like a Rendwraith. I activated the tracker on my wrist, scanning the area for any sign of the creature. The device beeped softly, picking up faint traces of dimensional energy, enough to confirm that the Rendwraith was close, but not enough to pinpoint its exact location. I moved cautiously through the ruins, my eyes scanning every shadow, every corner. The city was eerily silent, the only sound the soft crunch of rubble under my boots. I could feel the tension in the air, the sense that something was watching me, waiting for the right moment to strike. The first attack came without warning. One moment, the street was empty. The next, the air was filled with a high-pitched screech, like the sound of metal tearing through flesh. I spun around, my rifle raised, just in time to see a massive shadowy form hurtling toward me. I fired, the energy blast ripping through the air, but the Rendwraith was faster. It dodged the shot, its body twisting and contorting in ways that defied logic. I barely had time to throw myself to the side as it slashed at me with razor-sharp claws, the tips slicing through my armor like it was paper. "Fuck!" I cursed, rolling to my feet and firing again. This time, the blast connected, the energy disrupting the creature's form for a split second. But it wasn't enough to stop it, only enough to piss it off. The Rendwraith let out a furious roar, its body shifting and warping as it reformed. It was a terrifying sight, a mass of darkness, writhing and churning, with no clear shape or form. Its eyes, if you could call them that, were pits of pure void, filled with a hunger that could never be satisfied. I didn't wait for it to attack again. I fired another shot, then another, each blast chipping away at the creature's form, but not enough to bring it down. The Rendwraith lunged at me, its claws slashing through the air, and I barely managed to dodge in time. "Come on, you fucker," I snarled, squeezing the trigger. "Let's see what you've got." The battle was brutal, the creature relentless. It moved faster than anything I'd ever seen, its body shifting and changing with every attack. My energy rifle was powerful, but it was taking everything I had just to keep the Rendwraith at bay. And then, in a moment of pure desperation, I saw my chance. The creature lunged at me again, its claws aimed straight for my throat. But instead of dodging, I stood my ground, waiting until the last possible second. Just as the claws were about to make contact, I ducked, bringing my rifle up and firing point blank into its core. The blast was so powerful it knocked me off my feet, the force of it sending me crashing into a nearby wall. But it worked. The Rendwraith let out an ear-piercing scream, its body shuddering and convulsing as the energy tore through it, ripping it apart from the inside out. For a moment, the creature tried to reform, its body struggling to pull itself back together. But the damage was too great. With one final, agonized scream, the Rendwraith disintegrated, its form collapsing into a pile of ash and smoke. I lay there for a moment, gasping for breath, my body aching from the fight. The world around me was still, the air heavy with the scent of ozone and burnt flesh. I could feel the dimensional fabric stabilizing, the rift closing as the threat was neutralized. But I wasn't done yet. With a groan, I pushed myself to my feet, wincing at the pain that shot through my ribs. I holstered my weapon, pulling out my communicator and dialing the broker. "It's done," I said, my voice hoarse. "The Rendraith is dead."
Excellent. I'll transfer the payment immediately. You've done well, Dimensional Bounty Hunter.
I rolled my eyes, knowing he only says that to piss me off. Ending the call and pocketing the communicator. Feeling a sense of satisfaction mixed with exhaustion, I pulled out my device to take the Rendraith back for disposal. It was then I noticed my payout, and it was worth it. Enough to keep me going for a long time. But the job had taken more out of me than I cared to admit. I'd faced some tough creatures before, but nothing like the Rendraith. If I hadn't managed that last shot, I'd be nothing more than a smear on the pavement. The world around me was still unsettling. The ruins of the city a stark reminder of what could have happened if the Rendraith had been allowed to continue its rampage. I turned and started making my way back to the point where I'd entered this dimension. As I walked, the reality around me began to shimmer, the fabric of the dimension slowly mending itself now that the creature was gone. The buildings that had crumbled began to stitch themselves back together, the sky lightening from its sickly green hue to something closer to normal. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The Rendraith had been too easy to find, too quick to engage. Usually, creatures like that hid, making me work for the bounty. This one had practically thrown itself at me. A cold realization crept over me. What if this was just the beginning? What if the Rendraith had been driven out of its hiding place by something worse? The idea sent a shiver down my spine. I was close to the rift when I felt it. A sudden, sharp drop in temperature. The kind that makes your breath fog up and your skin prickle with goosebumps. I stopped in my tracks, every instinct screaming at me to turn around, to run, to get the fuck out of there. But I didn't. Instead, I slowly turned, my hand drifting to the grip of my rifle. There, standing at the edge of a ruined building, was another figure. But this one wasn't like the Rendraith. It was human, or at least, it looked human. Tall, dressed in tattered black robes that fluttered in the non-existent wind, its face hidden beneath a hood. But there was something about it. Something wrong. The way it stood, too still, too silent, like it was waiting for something. "Who the hell are you?" I called out, my voice rough, strained. My grip on the rifle tightened, but I didn't draw it yet. This wasn't a situation where firing first was a good idea. The figure didn't answer. It just stood there, watching me. I couldn't see its eyes, but I could feel them on me, boring into my soul. "I'm not looking for another fight," I said, trying to keep my tone calm. "But if you want one, I'm ready." Still, the figure didn't move, didn't speak. The silence stretched on, the air growing colder with each passing second. Finally, it spoke. Its voice a low, rasping whisper that seemed to come from everywhere at once.
You hunt creatures across dimensions, but do you understand what you hunt?
I narrowed my eyes, trying to keep my nerves in check. I understand enough, and I get paid well for it.
You are a fool. You chase shadows, but you do not see the darkness that surrounds you.
I felt a flicker of anger rise in me. "What the fuck are you talking about?" The figure's head tilted slightly, as if it were studying me, weighing me.
You are a pawn, a tool used by forces you cannot comprehend. Do you truly believe you can hunt the darkness without becoming a part of it?
I took a step back, instinctively raising my rifle. If you're trying to scare me, it's not working. The figure's laugh grew louder, more chilling.
Fear is not my weapon, Hunter. Truth is, and the truth is this: the creatures you hunt are not the greatest threat. They are merely the servants of something far more powerful, something that is coming for you.
A cold dread settled in the pit of my stomach, but I didn't let it show. I've faced powerful creatures before. I'm still here.
Yes, but for how long?
The air around me grew colder, the shadows lengthening, creeping closer. The rift I had come through flickered in and out of existence, like a faulty signal. I could feel the dimensional fabric weakening again, as if something was pushing through from the other side. I'm done playing games, I snapped, leveling the rifle at the figure. If you have something to say, say it. Otherwise, get out of my way. The figure didn't flinch, didn't move. Instead, it slowly raised a hand, pointing directly at me.
You are marked, Hunter. The darkness knows your name, and it is coming for you. You will not escape it.
Before I could react, the figure began to dissolve, its form breaking apart like smoke in the wind. But its voice lingered, echoing in the empty streets.
Run, Hunter. Run while you still can, but know this: you cannot outrun the darkness.
And then it was gone, leaving me alone in the desolate city. I stood there for a moment, my heart pounding, my mind racing. The air was still cold, the rift flickering like a dying light bulb. What the hell had just happened? Who or what was that figure? And what did it mean that I was marked? I didn't have time to ponder it. The rift was weakening, and if I didn't leave now, I'd be trapped in this dimension forever. I turned and sprinted toward the rift, diving through just as it began to collapse. The world around me blurred, the familiar pull of the dimensional shift tugging at my body as I was dragged back to my own reality. When I landed, it was in a dark alleyway in some forgotten part of the city, the kind of place where the shadows were long and the air was thick with the stench of decay. I stumbled to my feet, my body aching from the fight and the dimensional jump. The first thing I did was check the payout, just to make sure a glitch in jumping between fabrics of space didn't erase what was there earlier. True to the broker's word, the money had been transferred and was still there, a sum large enough to make anyone else retire on the spot. But I knew I couldn't retire. Not now. Not with that figure's words still echoing in my head.
You are marked, Hunter.
I looked around the alley, half expecting to see those cold, dark eyes watching me from the shadows. But there was nothing, just the distant hum of the city and the faint smell of rot. I didn't know what that figure was or what it wanted, but I knew one thing for sure. This was far from over. The creatures I hunted were just the beginning, the tip of an iceberg that ran deep into the heart of the multiverse. And now, something was coming for me. Something worse than any Rendraith. Worse than any nightmare I'd faced before. I pulled out my communicator, dialing the broker once more.
Another job already?
He asked, his voice tinged with amusement. Not yet, I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. But I need information. Everything you've got on a creature that marks its prey. Something that deals in shadows and speaks in riddles. The broker was silent for a moment.
That's a tall order, Hunter, but I'll see what I can dig up.
Do it, I said, my eyes scanning the dark alleyway. And make it fast. I have a feeling I don't have much time. I ended the call and slipped the communicator back into my pocket. The money was good, but now it wasn't just about the bounty. Now it was about survival. Because whatever was coming, I had a feeling it wouldn't be satisfied with just killing me. It would want to make me suffer first, to make me regret every decision that had led me to this point. And if there's one thing I've learned in my time as a bounty hunter, it's this. If something's coming for you, you don't wait for it to find you. You find it first, and you kill it before it kills you. No matter how dark, how twisted, how impossible it might seem, I would hunt it down. Because that's what I do. I'm the dimensional bounty hunter, and as long as the price is right, I'll hunt anything, even the darkness itself.